All right, we're back again with the M1 MacBook Pro, but this time the hype is over, the honeymoon phase has ended, and it's time I give you guys my honest thoughts after a month of browsing, editing, and yes, even gaming on the M1 MacBook Pro. Spoiler alert, it's still a really great laptop, but maybe not the best laptop. Let me explain. Oh, and before we get started, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any more videos, because I make cool videos and I would very much appreciate your support. Anyway, so just as a quick overview, the M1 MacBook Pro as well as the MacBook Air and Mac Mini are the first devices in Apple's lineup to offer this M1 chip, which if you didn't know is the first processor built and designed by Apple themselves. See the video here to learn more. These machines released back in November and since then have made the rounds across the tech community as being some of the most impressive machines we've seen in a very long time. Maybe even ever. So I guess this is more of a review of the MacBook Pro with the M1 chip rather than an all-new MacBook. But for continuity's sake, I'm going to review the whole thing in case you're like me and have never owned a MacBook before. As far as the outsides go, the M1 MacBook is no different than any other MacBook, as it's using the same aluminum chassis as before. There's nothing special going on with the design here. Pretty minimalist, which is cool I guess, as it can be a blank canvas for you to decorate it yourself, which I feel like is totally a culture with MacBook owners, although mine will likely stay plain. There are some black feet on the bottom, but they aren't particularly grippy and have a tendency to slide on most surfaces, which is a bit of a letdown, but is a minor detail. There are some heat vents on the back side of the keyboard under the screen, but not to worry because the fan rarely kicks on even during heavy tasks, which is a huge thumbs up because every laptop I've had before this would get quite hot when sitting on a bed or even my lap. In terms of connectivity, it's scarce and scary for a Pro device, having only two USB-C ports on the left and a 3.5mm headphone jack on the right. Now, I don't connect external displays using Thunderbolt, but you can do that here. However, you are limited to, I believe, 2 displays or maybe just one, so keep that in mind if you plan to use this as a desktop replacement. Looking at the screen on the M1 MacBook Pro, we have a 13-inch display that's 2560 by 1600, giving you a slightly taller aspect ratio, which personally I like for productivity tasks. This is similar to that of the Surface line of products, but a bit less pronounced, and is still good for watching movies or consuming content in the traditional 16:9 ratio without getting bars that are too thick. Yeah, with 2 C's. Most of what I use this laptop for though is editing, web browsing, and typing documents like this script, so the slightly taller aspect ratio is ideal for me so I can have 2 windows side by side without them being too short. You'll notice that the bezels are there, but not too big to make the machine feel outdated or distracting during normal use. It may not be bezel-less, but to be honest, it's never bothered me, especially since Apple has moved away from those hideous aluminum bezels back in the day. Yeah, those ones. Other than that, the screen is super bright at 500 nits and is viewable from most angles, which makes it easy to work with while pretty much doing anything, even in bright environments. It's also color accurate enough to do color sensitive work like video or photo editing, if that's your thing. One thing, however, to mention is that it's only 60 Hz. I feel like I shouldn't have to say that, but if you're a gamer watching this, just know that gaming on this is not it. You can check out my gaming on M1 video to learn more. Overall though, I'm super pleased with the display and don't have any complaints other than maybe I wish it was touch. I don't know, I've had touchscreen laptops before, but it's not really my thing, so it doesn't bother me that this MacBook doesn't have it, plus it probably helps keep the cost down, which I'm all for. Not to mention that macOS still doesn't support touch input anyway. Of course, below the screen you'll find the new old MacBook chiclet keyboard because the butterfly switch keyboard from the models earlier this year were a dumpster fire. So hey, if it's not broke, don't fix it, right? In all seriousness though, I definitely like the keyboard on this MacBook as it reminds me a lot of my Surface Laptop 2, which I felt had an excellent keyboard. The travel is substantial and the keys don't wobble when you rest your fingers on them, which gives you a ton of confidence when typing at speed. It also won't flex if you apply pressure to the board due to the aluminum construction, but this shouldn't be new to anyone who's used an all-metal laptop before. It's no mechanical keyboard, but for a laptop this thin, it's pretty damn good. The keys are also backlit though, not RGB, but are bright enough to help you see them at night, assuming you haven't memorized where all the keys are at this point. The sound is minimal, but enough to give you that audible feedback that you are in fact typing on a keyboard while not being so loud that you're that guy on Discord with his Cherry MX Blue switches that just needs the world to know that he has a mechanical keyboard. Overall, the keyboard is well built and has the tactile response that I wouldn't expect from Apple given their love for haptic feedback and the Magic peripherals. Don't even get me started on the Magic Mouse. Speaking of magic, above the keyboard is that beloved Touchbar. Love it or hate it, it's here and it's gotten in my way a ton, especially for the first few days using this machine, but that's because I type like a 10-year-old in middle school typing to my friends on AIM. Yeah, y'all remember that? Good times. But yeah, the touch bar is minimally useful and is easily pressed accidentally if you have big hands or like to spread out your fingers when typing. Oh, and it can't be turned off, that I know of, so there's that. But hey, I mean, there have been some useful things that I do like about it, like the media controls and being able to scrub through content that's playing. Specifically, when I'm in another program while listening to Spotify, I can easily move through the track or change it without having to switch apps, and to be honest, that's kind of nice. Other than that though, it replaces your traditional function keys, so if you rely on those, just keep that in mind, as the touch bar is contextual and will change buttons and layout depending on what's on the screen. But there is a physical escape key now, which I guess is a feature on Apple laptops. So hey, it managed to escape the touch bar. If only I could escape my sadness. Just kidding. In short, the touch bar could be useful if you intentionally try to add it to your workflow, but won't ever come natural to you and instead will likely get in your way more often than it'll make you feel more productive. Next to it, you'll find the fingerprint button, as I like to call it, since there is no power button on this laptop because, you know, magic. It also allows you to use your fingerprint to unlock or sign in, which is nice and convenient. However, like the iPhone and iPad, you will have to enter your full password when turning the laptop on before you can unlock it using your fingerprint. Below the keyboard is the renowned MacBook Trackpad, and to be honest, it's hands down the best trackpad on any laptop I've used. Even though it lacks the true tactile feedback of normal trackpads, Apple does an exceptional job of recreating that feedback through haptics, which if you didn't know any better, feel no different than actual trackpad clicks. This reminds me a lot of the home button on the iPhone 7 where you could click it, but it didn't move. Super cool stuff, or should I say, magic. Okay, I'm done, I promise. In all seriousness though, the trackpad is phenomenal and highly responsive even when moving very small amounts with minimal cursor jitter, unlike trackpads you might find on other systems. Not to mention, it's easily one of, if not the biggest trackpads in its class, making it super easy to scroll, move items, and highlight things without running out of space, which we all know is an awkward feeling. The trackpad is covered in glass, so your fingers slide across it with no problem and gestures work as expected if you're into that sort of thing. My only complaint about it is how close it is to the spacebar. Normally I like to rest my fingers just above the trackpad when using the mouse, habit I guess, but there's such a small amount of space there that I often either hit the spacebar unintentionally or touch the trackpad with one of my other fingers. I could rest my hand further to the right, but that's just not comfortable for me. But I'm willing to give up a little comfort to have the otherwise excellent experience. The trackpad is easily my favorite thing about this MacBook, besides the M1 chip, of course. The speakers flank the keyboard as they usually do on MacBooks and sound amazing. That's it, that's all I have to say about them. Dialogue especially is crisp and clear, even at loud volumes, which makes it perfect for watching YouTube or even movies. Of course, the bass is minimal, but if you're gonna watch a movie, I recommend headphones anyway. Maybe Apple's new AirPods Max? Nah, too expensive. The only thing I might add about the speakers is that the holes are super tiny, which is good, but also means tiny dust particles. Yeah, we're gonna go there. And other small debris can get stuck in them, which if you're a neat freak like me, may bother you, as getting them out is a difficult task to say the least. But that aside, the speakers are great and will not disappoint you. In terms of the internal specs, my model is the base model Pro with 8GB of RAM and 256GB of storage. Now this will likely come down to what you need out of your laptop, but for what I use it for, 8GB of RAM so far has been plenty for light editing in Adobe Premiere and Lightroom with a little bit of Photoshop mixed in there as well. Now remember, the Adobe Suite is still not entirely updated to run natively on Apple's M1 chip, so performance may vary over time, but for now, it's more than good enough to get work done should you need to. However, if this will be your only machine, just keep that in mind if the Adobe Suite is important to your workflow. The storage speed is stupid fast, and you'll have no problems when it comes to moving files to and from the MacBook, assuming you choose a storage option that will suit your needs. I plan to use an external drive for most of my work, but when I needed to move things back and forth, it was plenty fast, which makes things feel much smoother and quicker overall. Now, I won't go into too much technical detail about the M1 chip, short of the fact that it's an 8-core processor with 4 high-performance cores and 4 low-power efficiency cores for different workloads. It also has an 8-core GPU, which will crush just about anything you would need it to in a pinch. It's no 3090 or Quadro, but for small After Effects compositions and video editing, and even light gaming, it does just fine, all while sipping power from the battery. If you want a bit more information about M1, definitely check out my first M1 video here. I'm not going to show benchmark numbers or export times because, let's be honest, they won't mean much to you until you see the performance for yourself. Just know that it'll crush just about anything you plan to do with it, so long as you remember you're on an ultra-light laptop. Now, I do plan to make a video about my video editing experience on the M1 MacBook Pro, so make sure you're subscribed because I think there's a lot of back and forth on that topic, and I want to share my thoughts since MacBooks are commonly used by creative professionals. As far as battery life goes, it's incredible. Just like the speakers, there's not much to say other than that the battery life is simply impressive on this MacBook. I find myself easily getting through 3 to 5 days of light to medium use and even a full day of heavy use editing a full video on Premiere on a single charge. I like to think of this laptop as the most portable laptop ever, which sounds weird because aren't all laptops portable? Well, yes, but this MacBook truly is portable, and in my testing is closer to that of a smartphone than it is to other laptops, and that makes sense because it's using the ARM architecture. Having to worry about plugging in while editing or writing is a big pain, especially if you're like me and like to get away from the desk every now and then, even if it's just another room in the house. This MacBook simply crushes the day no matter what you're doing and will keep you powered until you get somewhere to charge it. It's actually the first laptop I've used where I didn't feel like I needed to keep the charger with me at all times. And if you work on the go, you'll know how much that means. Now, the cool thing about USB-C charging is that you can actually charge the laptop using a portable battery, which is super convenient. The MacBook isn't the first, nor the only machine to do this, but it's nice that it's there. So, I guess that leaves us with macOS. I'll preface this section with the fact that I don't like macOS. Never have, probably never will. Now that isn't to say that it's not good, because it is in its own way, but for me it's not what I would prefer to use. But this is a MacBook, so I don't really have many choices unless I want to dual boot or use a VM. And if I'm gonna do that, I'm just not buying a MacBook in the first place. So instead, I do want to mention the things about macOS that make the MacBook a good laptop experience, especially when paired with other Apple devices. The newest version of macOS, Big Sur, is special built for M1, and as a result, it runs like iOS does on the iPhone, super smooth. Everything is super snappy and responsive, which is a big deal on a premium machine like this. I have had minimal freezes, software hangs, and haven't had a crash once since I've taken it out of the box, which is a big thumbs up. In terms of the UX and features, it's not much different than previous versions of macOS outside of being able to run some iOS and iPadOS apps, but not many of them. Honestly, my 3 favorite features of macOS are iMessage, AirDrop, and Sidecar. I do have an iPhone and an iPad, and being able to text my non-existent friends and AirDrop things to and from my laptop is more convenient than I would have thought. It's hard to explain why, but once you have it, you won't want to go back. Sidecar is just a super smart idea and breathes new life into your iPad if you struggle to find something to use it for. For those of you who don't know, Sidecar lets you use your iPad as a second display, which can be crucial for editing while away from your main setup, and easily packs up into a backpack, giving you a solid mobile workstation, assuming you have a flat surface to sit it on. Outside of that, I don't have much else to say about macOS except that you either like it or you don't. Although I feel compelled to mention that Siri is like the Internet Explorer of macOS. Apple keeps trying to make it work, but it's just not useful 99% of the time. Sorry, Siri. So if you've made it this far, good for you. If you just skip to the summary, then the M1 MacBook Pro is an excellent laptop for the price, which if I haven't mentioned starts at $1299, which is the model I have. And for that price, you're getting a laptop that should cost more in the neighborhood of $1,700. So kudos to Apple for making such a powerful machine that's actually affordable. Now I know there's already rumors about an M2 or whatever, and who couldn't have guessed that? Of course there'll be an M2, M3, M4 Pro Max, and so on, but the fact of the matter is that right now this M1 chip is no joke. Other than the M1 chip though, if you've used a MacBook in recent years, this one will feel no different on the outside, but on the inside, it'll shock you with its all-week battery life and its blazing fast performance, all while staying impressively cool and quiet. As a custom PC kind of guy, I'm really impressed with this MacBook and will definitely be keeping it around, especially as I continue to grow my channel. I definitely recommend the M1 MacBook Pro to anyone who's currently looking to get a new laptop, but already has a main computer they do all of their heavy work on. While this MacBook will get you through most things in a pinch, it's not going to replace a more powerful system. So if 3D modeling and heavy video editing is your jam, maybe wait for the more powerful 16-inch MacBooks with whatever new M chip they decide to toss in it. But for everything else, you can't go wrong with an M1 powered Mac, especially for the price. So that's gonna be it for me. If you enjoyed this video, leave it a like and hit that subscribe button. Let me know in the comments below if you wanna see more reviews like this. Are you rocking an M1 Mac? If so, let me know your experience. Also, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and Happy New Year. I hope you guys have a great rest of your week, and I'll see you guys next year. Peace. I only had to do this like 6 times, so hopefully 6, more like 12 times. I only had to do this like 12 times, so hopefully this one is the one. So see you next year. Bye-bye.